Tim. We've just finished a podcast on the virtues of a discretionary fund management offering for our clients. Now I'd like to take a dive into the world we are currently in and explore your role as investment director, looking at how Rowan Dartington sees the investment markets. As we are, it's the 15th of June 2022, and it's fair to say that we have had some major topics come to the fore over the last few months, with the advent of higher inflation, followed by war in the Ukraine, potentially throwing fuel on that fire, as well as COVID restrictions coming and going and coming back in China. What are you and Rowan Dartington seeing as the major challenges aside from those things, or what are those things causing as the major challenges at the moment?
I think you have hit on the major challenges.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is the biggest one? I think probably inflation it has shot up, as we know, very quickly, and it's worldwide. There's maybe a few exceptions where it's not as great, but it is going to have a significant impact on consumers. And a lot of it, as we know, is driven by energy prices, and we know that is linked very much, obviously, to the Ukraine-Russia situation. And I don't think that is going to alter anytime soon, whilst the world is obviously looking for alternative ways to route fuel, different types of fuel, rerouting supply chains, etc. It will take time. So I think the inflation problem that we have is going to be here for a while. I suspect it will peak in the next few months, but it's going to stay, in my view, at an elevated level. What that elevated level looks like, I'm not sure at this point, but a lot's going to hinge on the fuel price, and the direction of travel, doesn't indicate any pressure is yet being taken off of that.
How much do you think the central banks can and will try and affect a reduction in the inflation figures through interest rate hikes? How much of that is going to happen that's not necessarily going to actually be the reason that inflation comes down?
Yeah, I kind of feel they're in between a bit of a rock and a hard place, because it's not demand really which is the main driver of the rise in energy prices, as we know. It's on the supply side. So putting up your base rate isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. So having said that, they are clearly putting interest rates up. I think what's happened is they wanted to put rates up a long time ago, and they frankly, I think, easy with hindsight, but they should have done. If you look back to the financial crisis, when they dropped interest rates down to something like 0.5%, 1/4%, they were saying at the time, this is an emergency rate, with the indication that it was not going to be staying there for very long, but it had stayed there for more than a decade. And of course that then gets baked into everyone's thinking, it gets baked into economic models, it gets baked into business plans, it gets, it's in everything. And now obviously they're pushing it up, and that's going to have quite an impact. And I suspect it's partly they want to get it back up so they can bring it back down again. So there's an element, I sense, of psychology in this, the whole idea of forward guidance, which particularly the Fed, has used effectively. It will be interesting to see, but I think the other problem is wage inflation. Obviously, within inflation where it is, real wages are falling and quite sharply, and there will be a lot of demand for increased wages, which is what they want to kind of stop in a way. It's tough. It's a tough one.
But we really appreciate you providing our listeners with your insight, and I look forward to discussing with you again soon, hopefully when the world has started to look a little bit clearer and a little bit brighter.
Yeah, no, let's hope next time we're in a much better place. Yes. No, thank you for asking.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.